Greetings. My name is Tim Stark, and I'm a professor of civil engineering at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. On today's episode of the video podcast, I want to focus in on the new QA/QC cost comparison calculator, which is shown on the screen now. This calculator is briefly discussed in my recent webinar on geomembrane wrinkles that was presented on September 17th, 2020. This webinar can be downloaded from the webinar gallery on the resources page of the FGI website. So I want to give a quick tutorial of how you can use this cost calculator or cost comparison calculator. Most important aspect of this calculator is this is just to compare the cost of field fabrication versus factory fabrication. Do not use this calculator as a bidding tool or a cost estimating tool for a job. That is not the purpose of it. So if you notice at the bottom, there are three tabs: factory, field, which is now on the screen, and a comparative sheet where the cost comparison of field fabrication versus factory fabrication is shown. So notice for this hypothetical pond that I'm going to walk you through, notice that the QA/QC cost is about $97,000 if you were to field fabricate the geomembrane, and it's about $34,000 if you would factory fabricate the geomembrane. So there's a cost savings of about $63,000 through factory fabrication. Now, how do you get that? Here's a graph to the right of the comparative sheet that shows you non-workday expenses, mobilization, per diem. Because you're in the field longer, notice the per diem is more. Hotel rooms are more, equipment total is more because you're in the field longer. And of course the labor is much more because you're in the field longer. And there's different labor rates between the factory and the field. So let's walk through this hypothetical example. If I go back to the first tab, which is the factory fabrication installation cost estimation, the blue cells are the ones that the user inputs. So this particular example is a 1 million square foot pond or waste containment facility. There's a shape factor of 1, which means if it was 3/4 or 0.75, it would be all slopes, and 1.25 is all flat. So you can see this has some side slopes and flat portions. The allowable panel size that can be used for this 1 million square feet is 125 feet by 400 feet, and that can be determined from the panel weight calculator based on the allowable shipping weight that you can send across the highways. Okay, so with that panel size and the square footage of the pond, you can see the calculator estimates 20 panels are required for this particular 40 mil reinforced FML. It doesn't have to be 40 mil reinforced. And in this calculator, the material cost is not included. It's just the cost of QA/QC and field installation. So using the panel size and the area of the pond or containment facility, there's 8,000 feet of basic seam, 2,500 of cross seam, so there's a total length of seam in factory fabrication of about 10,500. So then you can specify how long or the length of the tie-in seams will be, the average seam speed in feet per minute, in other words, how quick the crew can put it in, how many days the crew will work per day. In this example, I say 8, and if they are allowed to work, they can only work 2 extra hours, but those can be changed by the user. Then the other key input for the installation is the number of penetrations through the geomembrane. Those are time consuming. So in this hypothetical example, I use 8, and the time per detail I estimate to be 1 hour. So where there's going to be a penetration, it takes an hour to cut the geomembrane, put a boot on the geomembrane, and then clamp it to the penetration. Travel time to the site, 0, because the factory is close by. Non-work days, so I'm going to assume that there's at least a Sunday and 1 rain day at least during the project, so 2 non-work days in succession. Then the number of personnel, so 1 supervisor, a QC technician, welding techs, and 4 laborers. And I also give extra hours, and notice the different rates for the extra hours. The supervisor is now $30 more than regular, $60 versus $90. The QC tech is $25 more. So this is basically overtime. If you're not going to allow overtime, you can set that to 0. Also is union versus non-union wages. So here you could put in the union wage or prevailing wage here if you're in that particular category. You'll see that in the field fabrication in just a minute, because generally field fabrication usually involves union labor, whereas the factory does not. Okay, then equipment, trucks, generators, fuel, wedge welders, other tools, large loader, small loader, whatever other equipment, and the charge rates for all of those, and that comes down to the 33,500 roughly that you saw on the comparative sheet. So all of these blue cells have to be set by the user for your particular project. Again, legal disclaimer, this is for estimating purposes only. It's not a formal cost estimate. It's really just to compare field versus factory fabrication. So let's go to the field fabrication sheet. It looks very similar to the factory that we just ran through. There's the 1 million square foot pond. Now notice instead of a panel, we have a rolled good. The rolled good is assumed to be 22.5 feet wide, 560 feet long. So you're going to need 79 rolls, and that's going to create 44,000 lineal feet of basic seam, about 1,800 cross seams, for a total of about 46,000 feet in the field. Okay. Length of seam, so that's the same number of penetrations and same rates. But again, if it's non-union, you can see the costs go up, or you can put a different rate in for non-union, or if it's union. And then here's the crew, the equipment, and so that gives you a total cost of about $97,000. So then you go to the comparative sheet, and so now hopefully that explains the initial chart I showed you, 97 versus 33,000, so a savings of 63,000. The breakdown between field and factory. Some of the other comparisons on this sheet. In the field fabrication, you would be on site for about 17.5 days. Factory, you'd be on site for only about 7 days. So there's a savings of about 10 days, 10.4 days, using factory fabrication. Deployment time for the factory panels is shown on the left here, so much shorter. All the panels can be installed in about 6.5 to 7 days, whereas all the rolls, it's going to take about 17 days. And the last graph over here is just a bar chart showing you the difference between the field and factory cost of $97,000 and $33,000. So this is a very handy spreadsheet to quickly quantify for an owner, a client, an engineering consultant, what the difference in just QA, QC, and installation costs will be between factory and field fabrication. If you have any questions or would like additional information, please email me at fabricatedgeomembrane@gmail.com or visit the FGI website at fabricatedgeomembrane.com. Thanks for attending.